I said, man, I haven't done a high school play.
Right.
And he said, well, acting is more than just having experience as an actor's presence. And he says, I don't know if you have it or not, but you should give it a try. And I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, you take acting classes.
Chuck Norris earned just $12 a week at his first job. Today, he's worth $70 million. His mega ranch has its own bottling facility. His car collection would make millionaires jealous. But nobody's talking about his most surprising purchase, a hidden property that cost more than all his movie paychecks combined. Or how he turned down a $10 million offer that would have doubled his net worth overnight. The Walker, Texas Ranger star, lives nothing like you'd expect. Chuck Norris was born on March 10, 1940, in a tiny Oklahoma town called Ryan. Only 894 people lived there. His family was poor. Their small house had no indoor bathroom, no electricity, and got so cold in winter that they had to sleep in their clothes. He was born with jaundice so severe that doctors thought he might not live. He weighed just 5 pounds. But he survived. His mother believed he had a reason to stay alive. No one could have guessed that the sick baby in that freezing house would grow up to become a global action star. His father, Ray D. Norris, lived a life full of struggle. At 17, he lied about his age to join the Army. He fought in World War II and survived a deadly blast during the Battle of the Bulge. But after coming home, the war never left him. He jumped from job to job, 27 in total over 12 years. He worked as a mechanic, bus driver, and trucker. He drove across 48 states and covered over 750,000 miles before Chuck even turned 10. Still, he never earned more than $7,200 in a year. He worked 14-hour days, sometimes holding 3 jobs at once. But his biggest regret, which he confessed before dying, was never seeing Chuck in his first movie. Ray also battled alcohol. By the time Chuck was 9, his father was drinking 2 bottles of whiskey a day. On Christmas Eve in 1952, a drunk Ray crashed their only car into a pole. Chuck, just 12 years old, had to walk nearly 8 miles every day to his job at a grocery store. He earned $12 a week. His parents divorced soon after, a huge scandal in their small church. His mother made $35 a week as a waitress. Chuck worked every job he could, delivering newspapers, shining shoes, working in fields. One winter, they ate nothing but beans and cornbread for 47 straight days. On his 13th birthday, his dad didn't show up. He sent a crumpled $5 bill in the mail. Chuck kept it for decades as a reminder of what he never wanted to become. In school, Chuck barely spoke. His teachers wrote that he would go an entire day without saying a word. He had terrible stage fright and even threw up before a book report in 7th grade. He refused to redo it and took a failing grade. He stuttered so badly that he avoided certain letters when talking. At 15, he was just 5 feet 2 inches and 98 pounds. Bullies picked on him constantly. One even threw him into a mud puddle in front of his crush. Chuck was so shy, he ate lunch alone in the boiler room. In his senior year, the class photo photographer asked him to step aside, not realizing he was a student. He later said, "I was invisible." Things started to change when his family moved to Torrance, California, in 1956. His mother had finally left his father for good. But life wasn't easier in the city. Chuck still struggled in school. He failed his first public speaking class. He didn't join sports or clubs. He worked part-time just to help his family. He lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment with his mom and brothers. They barely had enough to get by. But something important happened that year. He met a girl named Diane Holchek at a Christmas dance. Chuck was 16. Diane was a cheerleader. Somehow he got the courage to ask her to dance. That dance turned into a relationship. They dated for 2 years. He proposed when he thought she might leave him for a richer guy. They got married just after his 18th birthday. The wedding was small. Only 23 people came. Their rings were borrowed. Their honeymoon lasted 1 night in a cheap hotel. What Diane didn't know was that Chuck had already enlisted in the Air Force. 8 days after the wedding, he left. He joined the military because he felt trapped. At his graduation, his drunk father had caused a scene. Chuck had $300 and a new wife to support. He failed his first military test, but got in during a recruitment push. He became an air policeman because it was one of the few jobs open to recruits without a diploma. He failed the fitness test twice. He got in trouble twice in his first 6 months. He once said he had never thrown a punch before joining the Air Force. During his first fight training, a smaller guy pinned him in 12 seconds. In 1959, he was sent to South Korea. Locals had trouble saying Carlos, his real name. They called him something like Chuck Les. His commander heard it and started calling him Chuck. At first, he hated the name. He even asked to keep his real name on official records. The request was denied. They said nicknames helped morale. One night, while feeling lost, he walked into a judo school. He got beat badly by a smaller instructor, but something clicked. He came back the next day and started learning martial arts from a Korean master named Kim Bok-man. The master only called him Chuck, meaning strong fist. By 1962, his time in the military ended. He returned to California with a black belt and a dream. Chuck applied to become a police officer. While he waited, he opened his first martial arts studio. By day, he worked at Northrop Aviation. At night, he taught karate. Within 2 years, he had enough students to quit his day job. That was a bold move. Few Americans had even heard of Tang Soo Do back then. But Chuck didn't stop. He built a chain of over 30 karate schools across Southern California. Celebrities like Steve McQueen, Bob Barker, and even Priscilla Presley became his students. In the same year he returned from Korea, Chuck also became a father. His son Mike was born in 1962. Chuck had married his high school sweetheart, Diane, back in 1958, just before shipping off to Korea. Now, with a baby to support, pressure mounted. He needed more income. That's when he turned to tournaments. His first competitions didn't go well. He lost to Joe Louis and Alan Steen. At the International Karate Championships, Tony Tulliners beat him 3 times. In 1966, he was knocked out early by John Comanche. These losses didn't break him. They fueled him. But around this time, Chuck made a serious mistake. In 1963, he had a short affair with a woman named Johanna. He didn't tell her he was married. She got pregnant. Her daughter Dina was born, and Chuck had no idea. Johanna kept it a secret for 26 years. In 1991, Dina overheard her mother talking and decided to write to Chuck. She wanted to meet her father. When they finally met, Chuck didn't ask for DNA. He hugged her, and they both cried. That was enough for him. Today, Dina is part of the Norris family. Her son, Chuck's grandson, is a successful model. Back in the tournament world, something changed in 1967. Chuck started winning a lot. He beat top fighters like Joe Louis, Skipper Mullins, and Steve Sanders. At one event, he even used a judo throw to defeat a 42-year-old opponent, proof that he was adding new weapons to his arsenal. He faced Joe Louis again, but this time he didn't stand in front of him. He moved. He countered. He won. By the end of that year, he had beaten Louis 3 times without losing once. Chuck was no longer just a teacher. He was becoming a legend. Then came June 3rd, 1967. At the Tournament of Karate, Chuck fought and beat 7 opponents in a single day. The final match was against Skipper Mullins. Chuck won. Just 3 weeks later, he traveled to New York and claimed another huge victory at Madison Square Garden. He beat Steve Sanders 2-1, then took down Joe Louis once more to win it all. But the journey wasn't over. In early 1968, Chuck faced a young fighter named Luis Delgado, and he lost. That made it his 10th career defeat, and his last. Later that year, they had a rematch. It was intense. Chuck knocked Delgado down in the first round. Delgado came back with a kick that split Chuck's mouth. But in the end, Chuck outscored him 101-93. Some say Delgado even broke his arm during the fight. Chuck won the Professional Middleweight Karate Championship that night. Then came April 1st, 1968. Norris defended his All-American Karate Championship at the Tournament of Champions. It was a tough, round-robin format, but he came out on top. That same year, he won the International Karate Championships again and the National Tournament of Champions. He didn't stop there. On January 17, 1970, he defended his title one last time before stepping away. When he officially retired in 1974, he had never lost a professional full-contact middleweight fight. He had completely changed the way karate was seen in America. But Norris wasn't done with karate. Back in the late 1950s, while serving as a military policeman in South Korea, he had studied Tang Soo Do. That was just the beginning. When he returned to the United States, he learned from masters of Shotokan, Shitoryu, American Kenpo, and Judo. He took bits from each style and began to form his own. That mix became American Tang Soo Do. In 1973, he launched the National Tang Soo Do Congress. But by 1979, he was ready for something bigger. He dissolved the Congress and founded the United Fighting Arts Federation, introducing Chun Kuk Do, the Universal Way. It combined powerful fighting techniques with a philosophy of self-discipline, respect, and personal growth. By 2015, the system was officially renamed the Chuck Norris System. With his growing fame, people wanted to learn from him. Not just anyone, celebrities. His karate schools trained over 325 black belts. But some names stood out. Steve McQueen, for one. McQueen wasn't just a student. He pushed Norris into acting when money was tight after retirement. Bob Barker, host of The Price is Right, trained with him too. Priscilla Presley wanted his help with fitness and self-defense. Even the Osmond brothers trained under him, bringing martial arts into their showbiz routines. Norris also coached a black belt team that stayed undefeated for 29 straight tournaments. His role as a teacher was just as powerful as his role as a fighter. And then came Bruce Lee. The two met in 1967 at Madison Square Garden. Norris had just won the All-American Karate Open. Lee was there doing a demonstration. Afterward, they talked. That conversation turned into a friendship, and a rivalry built on deep respect. For 2 years, they trained together in Los Angeles. Norris helped Lee improve his kicks. He told him, "Kick wherever they're dumb enough to let you." Lee took that advice to heart. Chuck Norris didn't just walk into Hollywood, he fought his way in. Back in 1968, he made a blink-and-you-miss-it appearance in The Wrecking Crew, a spy comedy starring Dean Martin. At the time, Chuck wasn't a star. He was still working at Northrop Corporation to pay the bills and running a few karate schools on the side. But outside the movie world, something big had already happened. He had just defeated Joe Louis at Madison Square Garden and won the All-American Karate Championship. That same year, he lost a fight to Luis Delgado, his 10th career loss. But he came back strong. On November 24, 1968, he beat Delgado and took the professional middleweight karate title. He held that title for 6 straight years. His movie role was tiny, but something had started. Then came 1972. Bruce Lee called him. Not a casting director, not a producer, Bruce Lee himself. The two had met at a karate tournament years before and became friends. Bruce needed a villain for The Way of the Dragon, someone who could actually fight. Chuck said yes. The result? History. The movie broke Hong Kong records, earning over 5.3 million Hong Kong dollars. Worldwide, it pulled in around $130 million. Their final fight scene became one of the most iconic battles in film. It wasn't just acting, it was real technique, real power, and real respect. People saw two masters on screen. And Chuck wasn't just some stuntman anymore. He was a star in the making. What most people don't know is that the famous Colosseum fight scene was illegal. They didn't have permission to film inside the actual Roman Colosseum, but Bruce Lee was determined. He bribed some local officials and smuggled the cameras in as if the crew were just tourists. They only had a few hours before they had to leave, so most of the fight was later finished at a studio. But the editing made it seamless. That 10-minute battle became a classic. Chuck later called it the best martial arts scene ever filmed. And honestly, it's hard to argue with him. Still, Chuck didn't want to stay in Bruce's shadow. He wanted his own path, and someone unexpected helped him find it. Steve McQueen. Yes, that's Steve McQueen. He had been one of Chuck's karate students and believed Chuck had more to offer than just fight scenes. In 1974, McQueen pushed him to take acting classes at MGM. Chuck listened. He wanted roles with real stories, not just endless punching and kicking. That change in mindset led him to a small film called Breaker. Breaker in 1977. Most actors would have passed on it. Low budget, unknown director. But Chuck wanted a leading role that showed more than just fists. The film surprised everyone. It made money, enough to prove that Chuck wasn't just a sidekick anymore. He could carry a movie. 1 year later, he starred in Good Guys Wear Black. The film didn't come out with a bang. It only opened on 5 screens in Denver on June 2nd, 1978. Distributors didn't want to touch it, so the producers did something bold. They rented theaters themselves, paid flat fees, and kept every dollar from ticket sales. Chuck took it even further. He went on a wild publicity tour. Over 2,000 interviews in a single year. He pushed himself so hard, he landed in the hospital with laryngitis. But the grind paid off. The film made $18.3 million from just a $1 million budget. Even though critics trashed his acting, the public didn't care. They saw something new, a tough American martial artist on the big screen, different from the kung fu imports from Hong Kong. Chuck told reporters his character, John T. Booker, was sensitive but deadly if pushed. He wanted to be like Clint Eastwood. That dream didn't feel so far when Steve McQueen, his mentor, told him, "Let the co-stars talk. You focus on presence." That advice shaped his career. After that hit, Chuck didn't slow down. In 1979, A Force of One hit theaters. It had a modest budget of about $3 million, but earned up to $23 million. He played a karate champ helping cops hunt a killer. The audience loved it. In 1980, he starred in The Octagon, a movie about shadowy ninja assassins. That one clicked too, especially with audiences who were moving away from dark, gritty movies and wanted something fun and thrilling. The ninja craze was about to explode, and Chuck helped light the fuse. In 1981, An Eye for an Eye finished off a trio of hits. Each of these films was made outside the big Hollywood system. But Chuck's name alone started to pull in big money. Studios finally took notice. In 1982, Columbia Pictures gave him a shot with Silent Rage. It was part science fiction, part martial arts. Kung Fu meets Frankenstein, as the director put it. The movie was shot in just 30 days. It made $10.5 million. That same year, MGM brought him to Hong Kong and Macau for Forced Vengeance. It didn't break the bank, earning $6.66 million on a $5 million budget, but it showed studios were betting on Chuck in bigger roles and more exotic settings. Then came Lone Wolf McQuade in 1983. Orion Pictures backed it, and fans loved it. By this point, Chuck wasn't just a martial arts guy anymore. He was a full-blown action star. And the best was yet to come. In 1984, Chuck signed a major deal with Cannon Films. His first movie with them, Missing in Action, changed everything. It told the story of a Vietnam POW going back to rescue captured American soldiers. Chuck wasn't just acting, he was channeling personal pain. His younger brother Wyland had died in Vietnam in 1970. Chuck dedicated the film to him. The film cost less than $4 million to make, but brought in $22.8 million in United States theaters. It kicked off a trilogy and pushed Chuck's career to new heights. He was no longer just a fighter on screen. Now, he was a hero with guns, explosions, and deeper emotion. Missing in Action wasn't just a hit, it was a shift. Film expert Ryan Campbell said it best. Before that movie, Chuck was just a martial artist. After it, he became a symbol of 80s action. Cannon Films put him at the center of their lineup, and it worked. Industry insiders said no one gained more from working with Cannon than Chuck Norris. By 1990, his movies had made over $500 million around the world. In the summer of 1970, Chuck Norris's world changed forever. His younger brother, Wyland, was killed in Vietnam. He was just 26. Wyland was part of the 101st Airborne, and he died during a brutal battle at Firebase Ripcord. According to Chuck, Wyland spotted an enemy ambush and shouted to warn the others. That moment cost him his life, but saved his entire unit. He was awarded the Silver Star and Purple Heart for his bravery. Chuck never recovered from that loss. It haunted him, but he found a way to turn pain into purpose. Years later, he starred in Missing in Action, a film about POWs in Vietnam. To most, it looked like another action flick, but for Chuck, it was personal. It was his way of honoring Wyland. Even though war movies weren't popular then, Chuck fought to get it made. Critics called it a low-budget Rambo knockoff, but audiences loved it. The movie struck a nerve. Chuck's passion showed on screen. It wasn't just acting, it was grief turned into tribute. That pain shaped the kind of hero Chuck became in movies. His characters weren't complex. The bad guys were bad. The good guys won. That was the world he wanted to live in. A world where justice was simple and heroes stood tall. That clarity came from loss. Before Hollywood, Chuck was already a legend in martial arts. In 1968, he became world middleweight karate champion and stayed undefeated until 1974. He was the first Westerner to earn an 8th-degree black belt in Taekwondo. He trained hard, taught others, and opened 32 martial arts schools. His system combined different styles and personal values. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about discipline, respect, and purpose. He carried that philosophy into every role, especially as Walker, Texas Ranger. In 1993, after years of saying no to TV, he found the perfect show. It was filmed just 2 hours from his home in Texas. The character, Cordell Walker, was like Chuck himself, half Cherokee, half Irish, Vietnam vet, and martial artist. The show lasted 9 seasons and 203 episodes. It was clean, moral, and full of roundhouse kicks. Chuck became a weekly presence in American homes. But while his screen life looked heroic, his personal life was far from perfect. In 1989, his 30-year marriage ended. Chuck had met Diane in high school and married her while serving in the Air Force. They had 2 sons. She supported him through every career turn. But behind the scenes, there were problems. Chuck admitted to cheating on her in the early 60s. That secret would resurface years later. In 1991, Chuck got a letter from a woman named Dina. She said she was his daughter. She was 26. Chuck had never known. The affair happened back in 1962, during his Air Force days. He hadn't told the woman he was married. Dina had learned the truth when she was 16, overhearing a phone call. Her mother begged her not to reach out. But Dina eventually did. When they met, Chuck said he didn't need a test. He knew. They hugged and cried. Chuck said it felt like he'd known her forever. She became part of the family, welcomed by his other children. Despite the emotional roller coaster, Chuck's life kept moving forward. In 1997, at age 58, he met Gina O'Kelly during a dinner. She was 30. The next day, she was on the set of Walker. They started dating and soon married. In 2001, when Chuck was 61, they had twins, Dakota and Danilee. The news had come as a shock. At a checkup, the doctor found not 1 baby, but 2. Chuck nearly passed out, but both babies arrived safely. By 2015, the twins earned their 2nd-degree black belts. In 2021, they became 5th-degree black belts and were named Masters. Chuck was beaming. He had stepped back from movies to raise them, and he had no regrets. Then came something no one saw coming. In 2005, the internet exploded with Chuck Norris facts. They were jokes, ridiculous, over-the-top claims about how tough he was. When Chuck Norris does push-ups, he pushes the earth down. Chuck Norris doesn't sleep, he waits. It all started as a parody of action stars, but Chuck became the main icon. Books were written, websites were built. Kids who never watched Walker suddenly knew his name. Chuck didn't take offense. In fact, he laughed. His favorite? They tried to put his face on Mount Rushmore, but the granite wasn't tough enough for his beard. That moment sealed his place not just as a star, but as a legend. Chuck Norris's net worth in 2025 is around $70 million. That number didn't just surprise fans, it reportedly stunned even his own family. A YouTube special in 2024 revealed how Chuck quietly built his fortune. Not through flashy spending or headlines, but through smart real estate deals, steady investments, and years of behind-the-scenes earnings. He didn't rely on just one thing to make money. His income came from several different places. First, his acting. Movies like The Way of the Dragon from 1972 and his long-running TV show, Walker, Texas Ranger, made him a household name. Those roles still earn him money today through reruns and syndication deals. Then came his books. Chuck isn't just a fighter, he's a best-selling author. He wrote about everything from martial arts to politics. Titles like Black Belt Patriotism and The Justice Riders sold well and added to his bank account. He also turned his image into business. He launched 2 brands, Sea-Force Premium Water and Lone Wolf Ranch Pets. The water brand came straight from his own Texas ranch. The pet food company was started with his wife, Gina, and was inspired by their dogs. Both products aim to be healthy and high quality, just like Chuck wants to be. Chuck also knew where to put his money. In 2013, he sold a Dallas home for $1.2 million. That wasn't just a house. It was 7,362 square feet of luxury. It had 4 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a pool, a gym, and a media room filled with Walker, Texas Ranger memorabilia. Then there's Lone Wolf Ranch in Navasota, Texas. It's not just his home, it's also where Sea-Force water is bottled. The ranch has a 50,000 square foot bottling plant, a martial arts training hall, and even a private lake. The whole property sits on 27,000 square feet of land. It's designed to be self-sufficient and reflects Chuck's mix of discipline and innovation. He even owns a house in Malibu, California, right on the beach. It's a peaceful escape, with ocean views that balances out his rugged Texas lifestyle. Chuck's love for powerful machines extends to his garage, too. He owns a Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat, which packs 707 horsepower. Then there's his Ford Mustang Boss 429, a rare muscle car with a legendary engine. He also drives a Toyota Land Cruiser, perfect for the rough paths on his ranch. And when it's time to show up in style, he has a Rolls-Royce Phantom waiting. But Chuck isn't just collecting things. He's building businesses. Sea-Force water stands out because it's drawn from an aquifer beneath his ranch and naturally filtered through volcanic rock. It's marketed as clean, alkaline, and sustainable, an idea that fits Chuck's values and the growing demand for health-conscious products. His pet food brand, Lone Wolf Ranch Pets, focuses on real nutrition. Instead of over-processed kibble, they use air-dried formulas that keep nutrients intact. The idea came from trying to give their own pets something better. It worked, and now it's helping other dog owners too. Chuck also makes money through endorsements. He's lent his name to fitness gear, clothing, and even beef jerky. The exact numbers are private, but those deals definitely add to his earnings.